محمد وعلى آل محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل وألهمنا رشدنا يا رب العالمين. قال الله تعالى: وتلك الأيام نداولها بين الناس. صدق الله العظيم. My dear respected Muslims, after the demise of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Abu Bakr and Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhuma, they meet one another and they say, تعال نزور أيمن كما كان يزورها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. Now why don't you and I go and visit Ayman radiyallahu ta'ala anha? The way the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his practice was he would spend time with her. She was one of those few people who was with the Rasul from the time of his birth till the time of his death. So they come to Ayman radiyallahu anha and she's naturally very emotional at the demise of the Rasul. So they try to uplift her and they try to encourage her and motivate her. And then she replies to them and she says, I am not crying because of the demise of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. ولكن أبكي لإنقطاع الوحي من السماء. The reason for these tears is with the death of the Rasul, that marked the end of the era of the revelation of the divine word of Allah. Because Sahaba were those people in the lowest of lows, they connected with Quran and they knew that the Quran would uplift them. أنزل أشرف الكتب بأشرف اللغات على أشرف الرسل بسفارة أشرف الملائكة في أشرف الشهور فكمل من كل الوجوه. The most noble prophet, the most sacred land, the greatest of malaika and angels, the most eloquent of languages, in the most beautiful of months. The Quran, from whichever angle you wish to analyze it, will leave you mesmerized. Today I want to go through one portion of an ayah, because in the last few days the world is mourning the death and the massacre of our brothers and sisters across the globe. And Allah reminds us, وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. So in the year 640, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anh, he received the keys of Al-Aqsa. July 15, 1099, the attack of the first crusades takes place. And the Muslim Ummah at that moment lost Al-Aqsa. According to some historians, 70,000 lives were lost in a few days. The blood of the Ummah of the Rasul, and some blood and the lives of some people who were, for example, Christian or, for example, Jewish. The blood came up either to the ankle of the animal or the knee of the person riding the animal. Such was the massacre that we experienced as an Ummah. 1099. 1137, a man by the name of Yusuf bin Najmuddin, a young boy, was born. Salahuddin Ayyubi rahmatullahi alayhi. The Muslims, we lost Al-Aqsa in 1099. Within 88 years, in 1187, Salahuddin Ayyubi rahmatullahi alayhi conquered the land of Al-Aqsa, and the Muslims once again remained and returned to those lands where people of different religious denominations lived in peace and harmony, side by side with one another. Now we come into the 1200s. It's the year 1217 and 1218. The three dynasties that are ruling the globe. In Iran, you have the Khawarizm Shah Empire. In Baghdad, you have the Abbasid Khilafah. And in the Mongolian region, you had the Mongols. And at that time, a man by the name of Genghis Khan, he writes a letter to the leader of the Khawarizm Shah Empire, and he tells him, why don't we ensure that our businessmen can go through the routes of trade easily? It'll be beneficial mutually for the both of us. And an agreement is struck. Negotiations take place and the agreement is struck. And at that moment, multiple hundreds of businessmen come from the Mongolian lands. They come to a place by the name of Atrar. And one of the leaders and governors of the area writes a letter to the Sultan of the Khawarizm Shah Empire, and he tells him that there's these traders that have come from Mongolia, and I believe that they aren't traders. I feel that in fact they are here to spy on us. The Sultan of the Khawarizm responds to him, do as you wish, do as you please. And at that moment, that governor made the critical mistake, and he took the life of most of those tradesmen. Some lives were spared. Those people went back to Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan sent a delegation to the Khawarizm Shah Sultan directly. And as they come to the Khawarizm Shah Sultan, and they echo the sentiment of their leader, Genghis Khan, what did the Khawarizm Shah Sultan at that moment do? He decided, for whatever reason it was, he takes the life of the chief ambassador, and according to some historians, he disrespected the other members of that delegation, who then returned to Genghis Khan. And at that moment, Genghis Khan said those powerful words, Inna fis samai quwwatu shams wa fil ardi quwwatu khan. That the horizon boasts the strength of the sun. But from today onwards, I, Genghis Khan, will show the world the power of the Mongolians. And the closest land to the Mongolian Empire at that time was Bukhara. And then the Mongolians, in their hundreds of thousands, they come to the city of Bukhara. According to some historians, Genghis Khan goes to the Jami' Masjid. He ascends the pulpit and the mimbar, and he tells and addresses the Ummah of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Innani niqmatullahi alaykum. I am the punishment of your Allah upon you. And then he goes on to murder and massacre every woman, every man, every child in the city of Bukhara. Every man, every woman, every child's life was taken. Some people were burnt. He goes to the next city, Naysabur. He continues and he takes around and he goes to every city and he's just burning the masajid. He's taken the innocent lives of innocent people. They say that the skulls of the communities made up pyramids, and that was the massacre that carried out. In the last 2 days, when we speak about the Ummah today suffering, we're suffering from external forces, our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine. But after a 500-day siege, the city of Al-Fashir in Sudan has fallen. And according to some reports, in 48 hours, 2,000 lives were taken. 2,000 lives. We speak about murdar wo nahi jisme sans nahi. Sirf murdar wo nahi jisme sans nahi. Wo bhi ek murdar hai jisme insaniyat nahi. Only that person who is unable to speak isn't who you and I refer to as the deceased. Even a person who lacks humanity is deceased. Every one of us is a human being. But how many of us are being human? Every one of us is a human being. But how many of us are being human? The Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam one day is seated with Sahaba, and he tells the companions that I made 3 du'as to Allah. And out of the 3 supplications, 2 supplications were accepted, and the 3rd supplication Allah never accepted. The first 2 supplications were, oh Allah, don't destroy the entirety of my ummah, either through a drought or through drowning. And these 2 supplications accepted. The 3rd dua that the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam lifted his hands and he made to Allah was, oh Allah, ensure that there's unity between my ummah. Allah yaj'ala baynahum ba'sahum. Oh Allah, don't allow them to fight amongst one another. Don't allow them to take the lives of one another. In one hadith, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, towards the end of time, there will be haraj. Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, what's haraj? We're not following you, Ya Rasulullah. We don't understand what the message that you're giving. And the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, haraj is towards the end of times, towards the day of Qiyamah, when people from my ummah will take lives of those within my ummah. Between the ummah, people will take the lives of one another. They won't look, is it my relative? They won't look and consider it's a person who says, La ilaha illallah. I read an article a few months ago by the BBC, and some of the atrocities carried out in the country of Sudan, wallahi brothers, wallahi my sisters, you cannot read it. When you see the sexual assault, and that published article reads that the victim was under the age of 5 years. The ummah is crying, the ummah is bleeding, and the ummah is hurting. And you and I may be thousands of miles away, but by the qasam of Allah, if we understand that our du'as are powerful. So in the year 1219, Bukhara fall. 1227, Genghis Khan is on his deathbed. And as Genghis Khan is on his deathbed, like any father who has built an amazing empire in the dunya and is very wealthy, he gathers his children. He doesn't want them to engage in internal conflict post his demise. The 4 sons come, and Genghis Khan distributes his regions amongst his 4 children. In the year 1227, Genghis Khan passes on. We fast forward, time is limited. In the year 1258, the grandson of Genghis Khan, Hulagu Khan, makes a move for the city of Baghdad. What was Baghdad to the Ummah? Baghdad was the intellectual hub of the Ummah. Baghdad was the headquarters of the Ummah at that time, before London could even present one library. In Baghdad, you had Baytul Hikmah, wherein there were, according to some historians, 3 million manuscripts. And at that moment, Hulagu Khan, they speak amongst themselves. We've taken over most of Europe. We've taken over land after land, region after region. And now they make a move for Baghdad. Historians have written Baghdad that in that year was populated by 2.5 million Muslims. And as Hulagu Khan and the Mongolians come, they were ruthless and reckless in the way they destroyed communities, the way they destroyed cities. If a woman was pregnant, they would cut her stomach, take the child out and stamp on that child. That was the lack of humanity within them. وَتِلْكَ الْأَيَّامُ نُدَاوِلُهَا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ. Allah taught you and I that we have to be mentally prepared. There will be days of smiles and joy and jubilation, but that will be counted perhaps with days of sadness, grief and sorrow. And as 1258, Hulagu Khan makes an attempt for Baghdad. Out of 2.5 million, 1.8 million, or the reserved number of 1 million Muslim lives were lost. 1 million Muslim lives were lost. When the Ummah thought, where do we go from here? How will this Ummah stand again? Where is the light at the end of the tunnel? 1258, Hulagu Khan takes the entire Baghdad. And he was a bit superstitious with regards to killing the Amir and the Sultan of the... so he decided to spare him. And a Muslim comes to him and says to him, if you're fearful of the blood of the Sultan and the Khalifa of the Muslims touching the ground, I will tell you something and I will create a resolution and I will give you a solution. So Hulagu Khan looks at this Muslim man, and the Muslim man tells him, wrap the Khalifa of the Muslim Ummah in a carpet, and then beat him to such a degree where his life is lost, but the blood of the Khalifa won't touch the ground. And that's how the Khalifa of the Abbasid Khilafah lost his life. But when everything was down, then they decided to go for Misr. This Mamluk empire, small empire. Allah gave them fath. Allah gave them victory. And you and I think, Mata Nasrullah, when will the help of Allah come? Ala inna Nasrallahi qareeb, the help of Allah is close. And in the year 1258, after taking Baghdad, they go to Misr. And as they go in the place by the name of Ain Jalut, they fight against the Mamluk dynasty. And that was the first the first loss, and the first defeat that the Mongolians had to experience. And from the progeny of Genghis Khan, Allah created a man by the name of Berku Khan, one of his grandsons, from the bloodline of a man who was responsible for the lives of millions of Muslims. Allah created someone who had the nur of Iman in his heart, and he accepted the Islam. And within 100 years after 1258, when they say, and historians have written, 50 to 75% of the Mongolian Empire accepted Islam. Those who Allah became the beloved of Allah. Those who attacked the Ummah became those who defended the Ummah of the Rasul. In these turbulent times, in these trying times, when we speak about Gaza, when we speak about Sudan, and you see that it's being lives free, where lives are being taken, where people are trying to flee, innocent civilians are trying to run to safety, and their lives are taken, and they're shot to the ground. Then at that moment, we remember that the help of Allah will come. The help of Allah will come. But you and I need to take lessons. You and I have to bring about change. Ila mata wa ila mata wa ila mata. Till when will we continue to live lives heedless? The ashraf of the sa'ah. These are the signs of the onset of the day of Qiyamah taking place in lifetime in front of our very own eyes. And if these realities won't wake us up, then what will? We make dua to Allah that He alleviate the suffering of the Ummah across the globe, whether it's from internal, whether it's from external, whatever families are going through difficulties, Allah uplift those difficulties, and Allah show the Ummah better days, and Allah show the Ummah the glory days, and Allah show the Ummah the days of Fath and Nasr. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanallah wa bihamdihi, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. إن الحمد لله نحمد الله تعالى حق عباد الشاكرين، وصلاة وسلاما على سيد الخلق صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، أيها الأخوة، إنه من العجب أن تترك أمة تملك كتاب القرآن وحديث من رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، وعجب حقا أن يئس الشعب تاريخ المسلمين ورجال ونساء رجال المسلمين، وعجب حقا أن تقنط هذه الأمة وقد قال ومن يقنط من رحمة ربه إلا الضالون. لكن حقيقة يشاهد وواقع لا ينكر، فإن غياب الأمن وضياع وانحطاط مصيبة حائرة لا ترجى في وجودها نجاة. إخواني، أحمل لكم آية عجيبة، وكل آيات الله عجيب، كنز من كنوز المنان، عطية من عطايا الرحمن. ولا تهنوا ولا تحزنوا وأنتم الأعلون إن كنتم مؤمنين. أتعلمون أيها الإخوة، ضاق الوقت، أتعلمون أيها الإخوة متى نزلت هذه الآية؟ نزلت هذه الآية بعد أحد، ليعلم الله المؤمنين أن العزة والعلو لا يتكرران بهزيمة مرحلية ولا يتكرران بنصر مرحلي، وليعلم الله المؤمنين أن الأيام دول وللتاريخ دورات، ولهذا دوره ولهذا دوره، وأما الدورة الأخيرة للمؤمنين وللمسلمين. أيها المسلمون، أنتم الأعلون لأن إلهكم الله الذي لا إله إلا هو سبحانه. أنتم الأعلون لأنكم أتباع النبي الخاتم محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. أنتم الأعلون لأن كتابكم القرآن فيه نبأ قبلكم وخبر بعدكم وحكم ما بينكم. أنتم الأعلون لأن شريعتكم الإسلام دين ودنيا، جسد وروح، عقل وقلب، ما ترك الله في شريعته من شيء إلا وضحه وبينه. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. أنتم الأعلون لأن موعدكم الجنة. أيها الإخوة الكرام، قال الله تعالى: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه بركة الكرام الإنسان على الخلفاء الراشدين المهديين أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي رضوان الله تعالى عليهم وعن سائر الصحابة أجمعين والتابعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين، وعن العلوم بمنك وكرمك يا أكرم الأكرمين. اللهم ارحمنا بالقرآن العظيم واجعله لنا إماما ونورا وهدى ورحمة. اللهم ذكرنا منه ما نسينا وعلمنا منه ما جهلنا وارزقنا تلاوته آناء الليل وأطراف النهار، واجعله لنا حجة يا رب العالمين. يا عزيز يا الله، يا قادر يا الله، يا لطيف يا الله، يا ودود يا الله. اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في فلسطين، اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في السودان، اللهم انصر إخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. اللهم اكس عادهم وأطعم جائعهم وآمن خوفهم يا رب العالمين. عباد الله، رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. أقيموا